On a family holiday to France, a chance discovery sent Thierry's life in a dramatic new direction.
My cousin, at that time, he was artistic, you know, he was putting mosaic together and trying to do the game of Space Invaders, recreating the character kind of way. So I filmed him.
Thierry's cousin was Space Invader, a major player in an explosive new movement that would become known as street art. This hybrid form of graffiti was driven by a new generation using stickers, stencils, posters and sculptures to make their mark by any means necessary. Street art was poised to become the biggest countercultural movement since punk. And Thierry had landed right in the middle of it.
In the 1990s, an offshoot of graffiti known as street art began appearing in cities around the world. It distinguished itself from conventional graffiti by going beyond tagging and bragging by using social commentary, humor, and politically charged messages, often employing newer, faster techniques like stencils, stickers, and large posters. In many ways, street art was to the art world what punk rock was to the music world, breaking the rules to show that something didn't have to be in a gallery or a museum to be art, that any surface you could hit without being arrested could be your canvas. By accident, a camera-obsessed French shopkeeper named Thierry Guetta became the sole videographer to document this notoriously secretive world, landing unprecedented access to some of the biggest figures in street art, and eventually earning the trust of the king of street art and, in my opinion, the world's greatest living artist, the man known only as Banksy. But when Guetta handed over his tapes to Banksy after failing to make the definitive street art documentary, Banksy turned the tables and made a documentary about Guetta himself and the mainstreaming of the street art movement. But in the end, it may have been Guetta who got the last laugh, a story told in the excellent, must-see documentary Exit Through the Gift Shop. Guetta, who owned a clothes shop in Los Angeles, never went anywhere without a camera and compulsively recorded everything around him. During a visit to France, he learned that his cousin was a highly regarded street artist named Space Invader. Following Space Invader and his friends with camera in hand, Guetta became intoxicated by the danger and excitement of these outlaw artists as they broke the law to make their statements. So he dedicated himself to finding and following the world's best street artists, using his cred as Space Invader's cousin to gain access. One of Guetta's big scores was meeting Shepard Fairey, one of street art's biggest stars who was infamous for his Obey pieces featuring images of Andre the Giant and, later, his iconic Hope image of Barack Obama. Guetta followed Fairey around the world, where Guetta became as much an accomplice as a videographer, often acting as an assistant and lookout. But the street artist Guetta most wanted to meet was Banksy, who keeps his identity a closely guarded secret and was known around the world for his insanely clever and political pieces, as well as high-profile stunts like secretly hanging his own artwork in museums and hitting the separation wall between Israel and Palestine. By sheer luck, Guetta was introduced to the notoriously secretive Banksy, who amazingly let Guetta film him working and eventually made him one of his most trusted confidants. With the popularity of street art growing and Banksy's pieces selling for hundreds of thousands of dollars, Banksy encouraged Guetta to finish his street art documentary. Little did he know that Guetta, who had no filmmaking experience, had never intended to make a documentary and had never even watched or organized the thousands of tapes he'd shot. So when Guetta eventually finished an unwatchable cut of his documentary, Banksy took possession of the tapes and told Guetta to continue with his art while Banksy worked on the film. Guetta would take this as a direct order from his king, remortgaging his house and business to start a large-scale art studio, where he began pumping out pieces under the name Mr. Brainwash that were shameless rip-offs of the work made by the artists he admired. Eventually, Guetta staged a huge art show of his work, a near disaster that earned Guetta nearly $1 million and catapulted him into the ranks of street art's elite. However, this drew the scorn of established street artists, including Banksy and Fairey, who criticized the unoriginality of his work and the fact that Guetta had never paid his dues or developed his voice as an artist. By the end of Exit Through the Gift Shop, you're left wondering who the sucker is. Is it Guetta, who wanted to make a documentary about Banksy, only to have Banksy take his footage and make a documentary about Guetta? Is it the film's audience, who expected to see a doc about Banksy only to find a movie about some weirdo Frenchman? Is it Banksy, Fairey, and the street art community, who let Guetta into their world only to have him rip off their styles and make a fortune from it? Or is it the art world, who considered Guetta's shamelessly derivative pieces to be the work of a fresh and original genius and shelled out top dollar for it? Exit Through the Gift Shop doesn't provide any easy answers to these questions. However, one of Banksy's main street art philosophies is that the mainstream art world is dumb, and that there should be no rules deciding who is or isn't an artist and what is or isn't art. Depending on how you look at Exit Through the Gift Shop, you could say that Banksy was bitten in the ass by a monster he helped create, or that he proved his thesis beyond a reasonable doubt. I'm Jonathan Kim, and this is a ReThink Review.